Good morning, everybody, all of our listeners in 9:50 a.m. Radio Land. This is 9:50 a.m., the progressive voice of Minnesota. And this is Chase Iron Eyes with Native American Patriot Talk. This is season number 1, episode number 4. And this show is powered by Native Roots Radio. And I want to say Kola Iyuha Ichichab Mdakyapi Iyuha Chante Washte Nape Chayuz Bapelo Buju Ani. Greetings to every single person who is tuning in or who will have the benefit of watching our show. As you know, I've been on the ground in Minneapolis, St. Paul, ever since about 3 days after Renee Nicole Good was taken from us, was taken from the good people of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and indeed is indicative of all of the terror and the violence and the trauma that Minnesota at large has had to navigate, has had to endure, and has had to figure out how to heal and to continue the process of holding those forces or those agents of repression accountable. And when we talk about, just look at the name of the show, for instance, Native American Patriot Talk. Why did I label it that? Because patriot, there's a stark difference between a patriot and a nationalist. And a patriot is somebody, a person who is conscious of all inherent rights that inure to a person, to a human being. All of those rights that inure to a human being by virtue of a righteous and divine birth. Those are rights that God or Wakantanka or Gichimanidu has given to each and every one of us as human beings, as the grandchildren of the powers of creation or the gods. Those are inalienable rights, unassailable rights. And within the framework of the United States Constitution, the people who founded this great country did their level best to design a project. Is it a colony? Yes. Was it a creation of its time? Yes. But did they allow for the evolution of the United States of America? Yes, they did. So a patriot is somebody who is cognizant and intricately, acutely, intimately aware of the nature of their rights. There are natural rights that are God-given, and there are also other rights that we put into the framework that informs who we are as American people. What is the source of our American identity? Well, it goes back to these foundational documents. The Constitution of the United States, the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, all manner of deliberation that we are able to inform our lives with today, including the fact that Benjamin Franklin visited the Iroquois or the Haudenosaunee and appropriated or borrowed, or saw something that was perhaps new or appeared to be able to assist the framers of these great United States in the pursuit of a constitutional republic. Ben Franklin took from the Iroquois the idea of a confederacy. And that comes, of course, from the great law of peace and how those 6 nations created a workable peace amongst themselves. But a patriot is somebody who knows who they are, and has a vision of America that doesn't exclude any American citizen from the full panoply, however you pronounce that word, from the full gamut of inherent rights and human created rights, synthetic rights. Those are supremely important. And I do this long preface because Native American Patriot Talk is a way for the progressive soul of the United States of America to assert itself and express itself and reclaim that mantle, or some of that mantle, because up to this point, everybody that's called themselves a patriot is the type of American brother or sister that instigated unlawful violence in the January 6th insurrection. Everybody that's called themselves a patriot has a predilection or an inclination to be maybe racist, or to be susceptible to the unconscious biases that come from centuries of psychological conditioning in the United States of America, in the Western canon. A lot of our folks are just unaware that they might have an unconscious bias, or that there might be racist undertones, overtones, overtures, aspects of how we think. Now, this goes all ways. This isn't just what we traditionally think of as racism, but I mention these because it's important to remember that there is a vision for America. There is a vision for the United States of America, propounded by, prior to myself and others knowing full well the nature and the power of the word patriot. Prior to us reclaiming that mantle, you might be lost in thinking that the only patriots are these hairy-faced, jaw full of tobacco, big-bellied, off the couch cosplaying individuals who maybe they like to dress up as ICE agents, or they'll go to cities and they'll carry Nazi flags. They'll present themselves as if they're the patriots, as if they're defending America or taking back America or making America great again, which is a very loaded concept. So this is the Native American Patriot Talk. This is somebody who takes the word patriot, and patriot does mean the ability or the willingness to defend your homeland. Well, I've been defending my homeland, the United States of America, the entire continent, the hemisphere. I've been defending my homeland from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and especially those corporate enemies, foreign and domestic, which seek to poison the soil or to contaminate and make cancerous all of the water sources that the United States of America depends on. Water is sacred. Water, to a Native person, water is not just water. Water is the blood of a god. And so that's a knowledge for another time. But I've been defending the United States of America, the homelands, the sacred sites, the water sources of all indigenous nations. And obviously, I'm not the only one. We're not alone in this, but we need fighters. Those of us who recognize the danger of a racist radical fringe doing what they're doing in the United States of America, inflicting death violence, terror, murder, and a usurpation of constitutional rights. Those who see what is happening and who know that if we allow that to go unchecked, if we allow that to propagate, and we allow that illegal and unrighteous usurpation and co-optation of who we are, of the nature of our rights. If we sit back and we see ICE in the streets, and you as we as peaceful Minnesotans or Americans are engaged in constitutionally protected behavior, say we're standing at an appropriate distance and we're just filming ICE, or we're blowing whistles, or we're honking horns and we're alerting people that there's a potential terroristic situation developing, which if you just go back in the record, you can see where Stephen Miller is giving license and giving instigation style verbiage, saying that you have license to create conflict, to instigate conflict with American citizens. Same thing happened with JD Vance and probably others. I bet Kristi Noem did the same thing. Perhaps Trump. This started a long time ago. This long wave of illegal criminal seizures of constitutional order. It started a while ago, but I remember, I think of JD Vance when it was either right after the killing of Renee Nicole Good or Alex Preddy, or it could have been another time, but he goes on national television and says to ICE and to anybody listening, just like when Trump is telling the Proud Boys to stand back and stand down, just go on pause right now. I'll need you later. This is the racist radical fringe. And so you have normally in a democratic society, a constitutional republic, you have elected officials, you have appointed officials, high-level appointed officials that we, the American people, are supposed to be able to rely on those posts, on those positions, to be objective, to be rational, and to comport their activity with constitutional decorum, constitutional order. But when in Minneapolis, St. Paul, you have the situations like Renee Nicole Good is executed. I mean, she's shot 3 times. Like, all of you have seen the footage. All of you have seen the footage, and we're all wondering how come that the killer hasn't been charged for Renee Nicole Good. But you have these instances of a criminal seizure, a disrespect, a non-observance of due process. And there's other podcasts out there of Minnesotans talking about the legalities and perceived illegalities and the whole bit about what happens with what happened with Renee Nicole Good. But when are their killers going to face justice? Alex Preddy, look at, I mean, you have a man face down, disarmed, and a guy, mag dumped, emptied a whole clip on Alex Preddy. And when will their killers be held accountable? Maybe, we have to give the elected officials of Minnesota the benefit of the doubt that they are pursuing every possible avenue. And I've looked into that, and because on one of the last shows, I remember mentioning the activities of Moriarty. I hope that's how we're pronouncing that name. But I believe a county attorney or a prosecutor. If you're paying attention to the ongoing process that Minnesota must engage to ensure that every single ICE agent is held accountable, every single illegality that was committed on Minnesota, somebody needs to be held to account for that. All the masked ICE agents, that's what we're finding in our lawsuits. And I'll update that about what we got going on in just a second here. But the state of Minnesota city of Minneapolis, St. Paul, every leader, members of the public bar, from the attorney general to the county attorneys that are working for the city and the state and the counties and the municipalities, they are all having to fight for their right to participate in the investigations that of crimes that are happening on camera in their jurisdiction. If you remember, the FBI would not share information. They wouldn't share. They wouldn't authorize the sharing of evidence and information with state and county officials who have the authority to charge, to investigate, to prosecute, and to hold accountable those who arguably, and I believe objectively, I mean, it's on camera, commit crimes. The killing of Alex Patriot and Renee Nicole Good was criminal. That was murder or manslaughter or a homicide of some sorts. But what we're learning is that not only the Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, they filed a suit to get ICE out of here right when ICE showed up. I remember that. It was a 10th Amendment suit. But we lost on that, or Minnesota lost on that. So ICE, to this day, maintains a presence. I was just out at the Whipple Detention Center 2 days ago, and ICE is still there. There's good people who are keeping track of everything. But you have Minnesota officials having to fight for their right to participate in investigations. So they've had to sue the Department of Homeland Security and I believe the Department of Justice. They've had to sue just to get up-to-date information about what happened. And then additionally, these same Minnesota state officials are pursuing to hold ICE agents accountable for their misconduct, their alleged misconduct in all of the cases that make it to the judges. And I've been inside our courtrooms here in Minnesota, the federal district. I haven't been in the state courtrooms, and but I've seen how you read body language and you read the undertones. You know, I'm a Native American person that has seen the inside of courtrooms as an accused and as an attorney. And in some states, you know when a jury or a judge or prosecutors or court personnel are opposed, or who can't, you know, we all try to be non-biased and non-arbitrary, but like I'm speaking in the instance of the climate, the defense of tribal water rights and Americans' rights to clean drinking water, that I went through this fight in North Dakota, the Dakota Access Pipeline. But I remember how slanted and how biased those judges and jurors were, because they wanted the oil development, they wanted the oil pipeline to exist, and there was a contingent of us who didn't want that. But I remember how hostile the judges, the prosecutors, everybody was to those of us who were being charged and hailed into court for defending our rights to clean water and constitutional rights and so forth. I remember what that was like. And then fast forward 9 years, now I'm in Minnesota's courts, and ICE, you know, the question is, are judges and prosecutors and officials of the court, are they going to be unbiased or give a fair shot to those who are being targeted and charged by ICE, illegally charged and targeted by ICE? And what I'm witnessing is that in the beginning, the trumped up charges, you could say, the trumped up charges, they're upcharging a lot of people who are getting charged with crimes, and they get charged with felonies that you know, might disrupt their lives or involve potential maximum prison sentences from 5 years to 10 years. And then over time, with very little prodding from the defense, a lot of cases are reclassified, and a lot of we know of ICE agents blatantly lying. In our cases that I'm involved with, ICE agents are lying. They lie. I mean, everybody's, I guess, corruptible, but the state of Minnesota and city and county officials are pursuing any ICE agent who may have committed perjury, and they're making our officials, Minnesota state officials, are making statements about the complicated area about qualified immunity from prosecution, that the vice president of the United States says ICE agents have complete and total immunity, or that at least that this administration supports that. And so we all know that anybody can commit a crime. We've seen it here in Minneapolis. St. Paul is no stranger to holding police misconduct to account. And so I just want to give a quick update about what I see going on, and I want to encourage Minnesota state, county, and other officials to continue on your path of holding illegal activity, criminal seizure of constitutional order to account. Hold their feet to the fire, because after the cameras go, we're left here trying to clean up the mess. And yes, we can't bring Alex and Renee back, but we can make sure that our laws are set up such that something like this is never possible again. Did Minnesota ask to be the epicenter of the defenders of the constitutional republic? No, it didn't. But Minnesota is also not alone. Just look everywhere ICE goes, everywhere the other side perceives a political enemy. I mean, just look at that rhetoric. There's certain contingents of racist and radical fringe that considers you to be a political enemy. Look at the levels of amplification of tyranny in the United States of America. I don't think our founding fathers contemplated having a chief executive or a commander in chief who is willing to completely run roughshod over the social contract and the constitutional decorum and the constitutional order, which is the root and the source of American life. Is it complicated? Is it controverted? Yes, but we're in a situation where more than 100,000 people, maybe 200,000 people, I don't know, in Minnesota gathered for the No Kings rally and protest. And it was good to hear the elected officials and bring Bruce Springsteen performed his song about Minneapolis. It was made because of Renee and Alex and what they went through and what their families are continuing to go through. But No Kings drew massive crowds across the country, drew millions upon millions. I mean, 3,300 marches and rallies across the United States. There's also marches and rallies occurring about our president around the world, because you have an unstable he's not a genius, even though he's clever. He's clever enough to speak at a fourth, fifth, sixth grade level, or whatever he's doing. What he's doing is very clever and should not be overlooked. The efficacy of how that crew operates. They're certainly controlling one arm of the United States government, and those other institutions need to hold strong. But I wanted to give a quick update about just what the purpose of the show, where we intend to go. I intend to do 12 episodes, so that'll be 8 more episodes beyond this one. And I've been on the ground. I was at No Kings, and it was so good. It was so good to see progressive values just blossoming. There's obviously roots right here at 9:50 a.m., the progressive voice of Minnesota, and that ethos needs to spread to the United States of America. So we're going to take a break here, and we'll be right back with you. If you want to learn more, if you want to dig in and support the good fight, we not only urge you to support Native Roots Radio and 950 AM Radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota, but please, you are invited to become a member of Lakota People's Law Project. This is an initiative of the Sacred Defense Fund, all Native led, all Native board organization, a vehicle to assert and defend those truths that we hold to be self-evident and those inalienable rights, all conceivable tribal and American constitutional sovereign rights. We are in the fight for the long haul. Sometimes we've had to get in good trouble. To join the fight in solidarity, go to action.lakotalaw.org, subscribe to our lists, and gain membership. Amadaki abi kola yuha ichichab hole ambetiki ake wahinaji ake woglaka Native American Patriot talk ichiab. This is Chase Iron Eyes. I'm coming to you from 950 AM Radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota. This is Native American Patriot Talk, Season 1, Episode 4, powered by Native Roots Radio, and I'll jump right back into it. This show is 50 minutes long, and that seems like a long time before you do the show, but when I'm in here and when I start talking about what matters most to the United States of America, what matters most to those who are paying attention, to those who are fully engaged in their civic duty, and who see the world we live in and who want a more perfect union. Those who want a better world for their children, who don't want their children to inherit the same depravities, the same nihilism, the same meaninglessness, the same lack of purpose, which has informed vast sectors of our population, of our society. They've convinced a lot of us that we don't have power, that there's nothing we can do. Because a lot of what the radical racist fringe does is done and executed under the color of law, or under the auspices, or at least under the perceived air of lawful authority. It's done by state actors. You know, ICE came in here, and at the behest of the Department of Homeland Security. Like, what? Where's Homeland Security? If you're securing the homeland, why are you here killing American citizens? So let's jump. I want to talk about a press conference that we, some attorneys, some significant legal actors. I don't even remember the date of this press conference. It was on Thursday, so it must have been Thursday, March. I believe it was the 26th. It was 26th or 25th. It's unbelievable how I can't keep track of days out here. March 26th. So we had a press conference, and I want to tell Minnesota about this, and I want to, anybody who's listening. We held a press conference at the Black Forest Inn, and the Black Forest Inn is a German purveyor of food and drink, and they're located right across the street from the Alex Preddy Memorial Site on 26th and Nicollet. And I didn't know until I entered the press conference the scope of all the people who've been brutalized by ICE in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And we, We meaning the attorneys who are on the case. And the lead firm is the firm of John Burris. And if you've never heard of John Burris, it's because he put in work before the advent of the internet. And he is the attorney that represented Rodney King when Rodney King, the family of Rodney King, and Rodney King himself, he survived that brutal beating that he took at the hands of the Los Angeles Police Department. This was 1992. I remember this clearly. I was in 8th grade or 9th grade or whenever it happened. And I remember because it just so happened that somebody had a VCR, VHS. And if you've never rented a movie from Blockbuster, you might not know what I'm talking about. But he had a recorder, and he just happens to be outside, and he happens to catch these police officers brutally assaulting, a harmless man, a black man, Rodney King. And that was it was one of the preeminent seminal moments of seeking justice for police misconduct, for when law enforcement acts outside the scope of their authority, or like in ISIS's case, outside the scope of the Constitution. Even citizens are supposed to be able to hold those folks accountable. If elected officials don't do it, if they're not doing their job, well, there's a lot of power reserved to the people as well. So John Burris is the attorney. He was on site at the Black Forest Inn. He represented Rodney King, and he also represented Tupac Shakur. It's hard to believe that those of us who grew up with Tupac Shakur are, in our 40s and 50s, well into our 40s, 50s, and 60s. But Tupac Shakur was assaulted by Oakland police officers, that two people that they called the rioters. And so John Burris represented Tupac Shakur as well as other significant cases. I'm laying the foundation because you should find BNCL law. And there's a brother named James Cook that I met while I was out here in early January. I met James Cook at Powwow Grounds, which is on Franklin Avenue in the Native Corridor on Franklin Avenue, right next to the American Indian Center, right next to the Indigenous Protector Movement, next to Maria's Cafe, Powwow Grounds, NAC. There's a lot of organizations that are on the Native Corridor, and I met James Cook there. And James Cook grew up in Southside Minneapolis, and he's a fighter. He's got great energy, and it was he who introduced me on the process of how to access the Whipple Detention Center, how to gain information on potential clients, people who were captured and who ended up being taken to, I think it's called Montana East or East Montana, that concentration camp in El Paso, Texas. That's in the headlines. Like everything I speak about, if you have more questions about it, just look it up, because I got 50 minutes with you. And everything I'm delivering to you, I try to be as factual and as up to date as possible. Obviously, you can take a deep dive into anything that I'm talking about. Just look at the conditions of that concentration camp, that detention camp, however you want to call, whatever that thing is, where they're trafficking in human bodies, and people are making billions. People are making billions on what is happening, and whatever kind of policy is being enacted by our government. You can believe that there's investors, there's shareholders, there's people who are benefiting from whatever egregious activity and deprivation of rights is happening. People are benefiting from that. Whoever's getting the contracts to build all those ICE facilities, whatever scores and scores of billions of dollars that ICE's budget is, it's ridiculous. But you take a look at what's happening, and we have to keep moving. Anyway, I'm at the ICE detention facility in Minneapolis, or Fort Snelling, and I'm learning how to navigate that process. And then me and James start doing more and more work together. James comes out. This is when the Native American, the Oglala tribal members were, we thought they were in, and they were alleged to be in there. We did our due diligence. We couldn't find them. We don't know their names, is what it comes down to. But in one of those instances, those high intense instances of visiting the Whipple Detention Center and being surrounded by 50, 80, combat ready ICE agents who are carrying the less lethal munitions, which look like guns, and they're what do you call it, imploding or exploding, detonating flashbangs, or whatever kind of munitions those are called, concussion grenades. If you've never heard those things, I remember the first time I heard those at Standing Rock, and it just kind of shocks your system, because it impacts the atmosphere around you. But we're attorneys. We're going to the ICE detention center, and you have to go through this. We had to go through this, and so we come out. James Cook left his phone number on the he wrote it on a piece of cardboard, and then he just held it up for the world to see. And that's when the beginnings of the class action lawsuit that we're developing right now, that we're about to file. So you have the BNCL law firm, and you got Trish P, right, from, she's another local counsel from Southside Minneapolis. And we've got a sister named Mohini, who runs an outfit called Helios Law. And it's funny, because when I don't want to name drop people's real names, and I don't want to, because there are going to be people paying attention. It's a long, drawn out war for the public narrative that we're engaged in here. And those of us who are progressive shouldn't be afraid at all. That's why I want to congratulate and encourage those who've come forward to report on the illegal activities that ICE has instigated against them. And this includes wrongful arrests. And there's got to be footage out there of the press conference at Black Forest Inn, but wrongful arrests, illegal detentions, things that have happened to constitutional observers, the people who were watching ICE, people who were simply there exercising their constitutional right, freedom of the press, freedom to peaceably assemble, freedom of speech. They're in places that they are lawfully authorized to be, but ICE still is giving conflicting commands. They're giving commands that are impossible to comply with in some of these cases. And either link with us, link with Lakota Law Online, or link with the BNCL. We're gonna try to update there for the latest information available for the class action lawsuit that is going to be filed against ICE for all these violations, which also include, being detained at the ICE detention facility. And then I myself am working on some Native American angles, the profiling, the illegal profiling, the illegal targeting, just some of the horrible things that have happened to Minnesotans. The private bar is active. There are other attorneys that I know of that are active, that are out there continuing to push, continuing to make sure that our rights are recognized, and that through the lawsuits that are being filed through the criminal defense. Now, we're also doing pro bono criminal defense. So anybody out there, if you know people who've had contact with ICE, who've either been arrested by ICE, or they've been surveilled or profiled, or any kind of hair-raising, anxiety-inducing behavior, because ICE was here in the thousands, and they terrorized a lot of people. You have no idea. And I mean, I had no idea, I should say. You probably have an acute and intimate idea of families going into hiding. People living in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, as if this is somewhere that Nazi Germany had overtaken, or who had showed up and announced that they were, what they were going to do to Jewish people, how they were going to just what ICE is doing. What this administration is doing is exactly what the Nazis did. They just show up and they try to impose tyranny, without using force. And that is possible when you have a population that is not aware of who they are. They're not aware of their constitutional rights. They're not aware of their human rights. They're not aware of their God-given rights. If you have a population like that is asleep at the wheel, then the radical racist fringe and the forces of tyranny and fascism, they're already making their moves. They think they got this. They think they got the numbers. They think they can come into a place like Minneapolis, St. Paul, and do what they did, and that they would be able to successfully exploit the fears and insecurities and prejudices. Oh, nobody's going to care about the Somalis. Nobody's going to care about the Somalis or the native people that we label as alien or immigrant. These are a lot of times these are native people. This whole hemisphere is native, right? Before the formation of the United States of America or Canada or Mexico or any Central American or South American, Westphalian style nation state. Before the formation of any of those colonial projects, we were here. Native people, great civilizations from the tip of what is now called Argentina to what is now called the North Pole. We, native people, native civilizations, native nations, we've always been here. In fact, we didn't come here from the Bering Strait. We're actually not immigrants. You hear that axiom, we're all immigrants here. No, we're not. Native American people are not immigrants. We were literally born divine flesh and blood from this land. But that's another story for another podcast. I want to go back to the class action lawsuits, because anybody who's experienced what ICE has done to Minneapolis or any other city as well is a violation. You've experienced a violation of your due process rights. Now, what are your due process rights? It's notice and opportunity to be heard, right? But what that means is that before state actors can deprive you, an American citizen, of any right, the free speech rights, the assembly rights, they're never supposed to be able to deprive you of those rights, but any rights that they end up depriving you of, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, property rights, they cannot deprive you of any rights without granting you due process. So a lot of people who were picked up by ICE, who were snatched and grabbed by ICE, it was done to them in ways that violated their due process rights. In addition to, situations that resulted in wrongful imprisonment or wrongful arrest, wrongful detention, and other, improper use of force, excessive use of force. I want to talk very briefly about some of the people who spoke at the press conference, because they deserve due mention. These are brave people. These are brave Minnesotans who would probably prefer just to run their businesses and mind their business and maintain anonymity or relative anonymity. Certainly, it takes something brave about a person to come forward and say, you know what, I'm going to fight tyranny today. I'm going to fight fascism today. You're not going to get away with making me fearful of being doxxed or of being targeted by a radical racist fringe. So some of these people are brothers like Adam Underwood. He owns a tattoo parlor in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. He was at the Whipple Detention Center, and it's all on camera. The ICE agents tell people to move back away off of part of the highway and back onto the sidewalk. So Adam complies with the order. He's complying with the order. They still tackle him and viciously and violently beat him, cause injury to him. So respect to Adam, brother Adam Underwood. And then there's brother David Tower, who's also is maybe he manages property. He can help you manage your property. I mention these guys because these are small business owners. These are people who add to the economic power of the state of Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul. And we, those of us who are progressive, should be supporting each other's business, like Smitten kitten. Like every business that you go to that has a sign out in the window that says ice is not allowed. We need to support those businesses like Code Blue Coffee on in the Seward neighborhood. Like any mom and pop or restaurant, any food vendors, especially immigrant, quote unquote immigrant food vendors, we gotta support them. But David was sitting in his truck at a protest. He goes to an ICE protest to observe, and he's sitting in his truck, and then he's boxed in. He's boxed in by other cars, and they're telling him that he's got to get out and that he's got to leave. But it's physically impossible for him to do that because he's boxed in. And what do? They drag him out of his car and violently and brutally physically assault him, even though there was no way to comply with their demands. This is the same as Gina. Now, if you want to go get some good German food, or you want to get some good German brew or other other what do you call those, imbibations or libations, if you want to go get if you want to patronize somebody good, somebody strong, somebody who's standing up for the rights of Minnesota, go to the Black Forest Inn right across the street from the Alex Petty Memorial site, and there you'll be, if you find Gina, you'll be blessed to see Gina. But Gina spoke at the press conference, and there I learned this is a nice woman who felt responsible enough to go and see what was going on when ICE was capturing and brutalizing people in her streets. And so she goes, I think it's to Blithedale, and she's there. She's in her car. She's surrounded by other cars. She can also not leave when ICE finally comes to her car and tells her that she needs to leave the area. It is physically impossible for her to comply with ICE's conflicting commands and orders and shouts and yells. You've seen the videos. You see they create an atmosphere that is completely anxiety inducing. Well, what do they do to Gina, who's maybe 5'6" and weighs maybe 130 pounds or something? They drag her out of her car. They drag the owner of the Black Forest Inn out of her car and brutally and violently, physically assault this woman. And I'm proud to stand with the Burris Law Firm, the BNCL law firm. I'm proud to stand with Trish Mohini and the other attorneys who are working with us, which I don't necessarily want to name because, like, and it shouldn't be that way, but it is a reality. Those of us who are willing to assert our rights, sometimes are being targeted by the less informed, I would say, by those who want to believe in the cult of personality that is surrounding this inept and incompetent president. Oh my gosh. That's what I'm saying. 50 minutes is not a lot of time. Look at what's going on in Iran. If you want, come to Lakota Law, at Lakota Law, and we're going to do, we're going to get material out there about how to conscientiously object to the Iran war, which is not our war. Yes, we're fighting there. Yes, we are the ones that are going to be called to make the supreme sacrifice. That Minnesota has already made the supreme sacrifice, but this is a war for profit. Our soldiers are going to be offered at the altar of blood profiteering. This is a war to distract from the Epstein files. There are alleged pedophiles who are using their pulpit and their position not only to inflict violence and death, rain death on children. We bombed 150 little girls at a girls' school. We're out here acting how Israel is conducting business And if you go inform yourself on what's going on. I'm sure you're already informed, because it is the most important, the most existential threat to human life right now on this planet is what Israel has got us engaged in. Why is that? Take a look at the war, munitions, and the manufacturers, the new Dick Cheneys of the world. Whatever happened on the war on terror. I'm old enough to have lived through all of this stuff, and I'll be damned if these forces, these guys, these shareholders, these corporations are able to take my sons and daughters and my nephews and nieces and put them in harm's way without lawful or righteous authority. That's an over my dead body kind of proposition. So Minnesota, stand strong, stay strong. All of those patriots out there, those of us in the United States of America who love these lands, who love this country, and will defend these lands and these waters in this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Thank you for listening. This is 950 AM Radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota, Native American Patriot Talk, episode number 4, powered by Native Roots Radio. Doksha Ake Wachiankalo. We'll see you again.